for 27 years we've been working symbiotically together. And so I think that there are probably ways in which I'll discover that we're different. But I would say one of the things that's been so great about our partnership is really supporting each other and being able to say, oh, what you're saying really makes sense. And that then became my approach or his approach if I said it. And so it's hard to answer that question, but he's definitely smarter than I am. He's more intellectual than I am. So I guess maybe that's a piece of it. I think I have a fine-tuned attention to detail. He has an attention to detail but doesn't like people to know that. But we've just had so much meaning and fun together and really grown together.
Did you graduate from this school yourself?
I did. I started working for the school. Actually, Rabbi Artson and I have known each other for 40 years. He was the RA in my undergraduate dorm. And then when he became the dean, we weren't so close then, but then when he became the dean, I started to work for the school, and right away it became clear that it was a great partnership, and it has been since then. And I said I'd stay for a year, and 27 years later, I'm still here. So it's great.
What parts of conservative Judaism do you think must never be diluted, even when adapting to modern culture?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've always focused on is that it didn't matter what the institutions decided, it was about the philosophy and the tenets. And so for me, the amazing combination between intellectual rigor and passion for Jewish living and love for God and people, that should never change. And it doesn't matter what label you give it. That needs to be present in any Jewish relationship.
How about religious observance?
Mitzvot, passion for mitzvot is part of the observance. So I think we always evolve and change, and things we couldn't imagine a generation ago are now happening. We couldn't imagine using electricity or technology on Shabbat, and then the pandemic hit, and that way we realized not just that we needed it then, but there are people that can't get to shul, can't get to services, and we need to be able to reach them too. So that's an example, but always with an eye towards how do we live Jewishly in its fullest extent, to the fullest extent.
Do you feel that the current polarization around Israel and Zionism has created a crisis inside liberal institutions, liberal Jewish institutions?
So I've learned from my Rabbi Artson, that crises can be looked at as crises or opportunities. And I think that they've created opportunities for us to really lean in to how conflict can be something constructive and not destructive. I don't think we're there yet, but I think that that possibility exists. And we need voices that have been trained by someone like Rabbi Artson to help lead that. And I hope I'm one of those. I really do. I consider myself his student as much as all the others.
How should rabbinical schools handle students or faculty who sharply diverge on Israel?
So we've taken a different approach than some of the other rabbinical schools. We have been very adamant that we are a school that holds true to Zionist ideals as a ideology and as a affirmation. But I think in today's world, people are often confusing Zionism with the modern state or government of Israel, and that's where we get to the conflict. And so if we just shove people out who disagree or who are outside the bounds, then we're just creating echo chambers, and I've seen it over and over again. And so I think that the goal needs to be to show curiosity and ask questions and to try to understand, but also to help everyone on all sides be able to ask the question of, how can I entertain the possibility that what I think may not be the only way to think? And I think that's true on Israel or any other topic.
But if you're better educated on the subject rather than someone who just comes with a perception without a rearing in Judaic or Judaic history.
So we have to expose them to that, and we have a new Israel Summer Intensive, which unfortunately we had to pause for this summer because of the war, but our Summer Intensive is designed exactly for that, and that's something we created together, which will allow our students to really get exposed to not just Disneyland Israel, but to the variety of different voices and opinions and speakers and experiences, so that they can better be informed, but also become advocates for whatever form of Zionism that might take for them. And I think that has a big umbrella of definitions if we allow it to. The idea of Zionism doesn't have to mean one thing, right? And I think when we think about the right to self-determination in our own homeland, that's one piece of it, and how that takes form is really what our program is addressing. How do we do that through arts and culture and politics and other elements that you have to consider that aren't just one-dimensional?
I see. Okay. And is it a conservative rabbinical degree or smicha?
Yes, our program we're the only part of the AJU that is denominationally affiliated, and our students become members of the Rabbinical Assembly of the Conservative Movement.
And with that, can they become Reform rabbis?
So yes and no, I guess, is the answer to that. So right now, the way placement works, particularly in synagogues, each denomination has its own placement service, and you get the rights of first refusal to the rabbis and the rabbis to the synagogues in those denominations. But once there's a point of the year when the market opens a little bit and they can look at different jobs, but the part that's harder to say that is it's not just simply, they could go to work as a Reform rabbi. I think the match between rabbis and communities is always about who am I and who are they, and is that a right match? Like you were asking before about religious observance, is that a match philosophically? Is that a match on ideas like Israel, on ideas of inclusion? And so it wouldn't matter whether they could become, it's just not for many of the students the right address for them.
So I know Orthodox rabbis who were not really trained in counseling, and they haven't, as congregational rabbis, they aren't, when they hit the ground, they aren't really prepared for the kinds of familial crises that they have to. Does this curriculum address counseling and psychology?
Yeah, so our curriculum is based in two real areas: Jewish thought and thinking through rabbinic texts, medieval texts, modern texts, and then the practical rabbinics of how to be a pastor, how to be a professional, how to speak. And we do that both in the classroom and through lived experience of a residency where they're under the tutelage of a rabbi who can help them grow in those skills. So it's very much a part of our curriculum.
Are there students who aren't cut out for that part of it?
There are students who are more gifted or less gifted in those areas, and part of our job is also to help them think about what area of the rabbinate can they most be successful in. And not everybody's going to be a pulpit rabbi, but also not everybody is going to be a scholar or an academician, and so we want to help expose them to different areas of the rabbinate so that they can figure out what works best for them. Good. Thanks.
Very good.
Thank you. All right, you still talking.